Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of Popcorn Podcast with Lee and Tim for a special interview episode for Force of Nature, The Dry 2, where we sit down with author Jane Harper and producer Jodi Matterson. I'm Timmy Fland, movie buff.
And I'm Lee Livingstone, entertainment journalist.
And we love to talk all things movies.
In Force of Nature, The Dry 2, 5 women take part in a corporate hiking retreat, but only 4 come out the other side. Federal agents Aaron Falk and Carmen Cooper head deep into the Victorian mountain ranges to investigate in the hopes of finding their whistleblowing informant Alice still alive.
Force of Nature, The Dry 2 is written and directed by Robert Connolly, based on the book by Jane Harper.
It stars Eric Bana, Anna Torv, Deborra-Lee Furness, Robin McLeavy, Sissy Stringer, Lucy Ansell, Jacqueline McKenzie and Richard Roxburgh.
We're so delighted to welcome Australian author Jane Harper back to Popcorn Podcast. We last spoke to Harper a couple of years ago when her first Aaron Falk book, The Dry, was adapted into a blockbuster that got people excited about going to the cinema again after the first wave of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was incredibly successful. And it was such an uncertain time for the film industry, and that incredible reception of The Dry by the public and critics alike is just a testament to the original storytelling of this talented woman.
Absolutely. Now, joining Harper for our chat is producer Jodi Matterson of the innovative production company Made Up Stories, who is behind some of the most intriguing and entertaining locally made film and television on our screens today, including Penguin Bloom and The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. In
this wonderful interview, we get down to business with Harper and Matterson to discuss the challenges of adapting such richly written Australian landscapes to the big screen and the joy of championing strong female stories.
And we also tried to bend Harper's arm to give us more Aaron Falk adventures.
Yeah, I really tried. I really tried hard.
You did your darndest. All right, let's take a listen.
Alice has been on her own for more than 30 hours. Why did she call you? A couple of feds out of their natural habitat?
Hi Jane, hi Jodi. Congratulations on Force of Nature being released, and I'm sure it's going to get the same reception as the first one. Jane, when adapting novels for the screen, obviously you can't fit everything in. So when you decided to let Robert and Eric do Force of Nature, what were the most important things that you wanted to see in there?
I think capturing the heart and soul of the book, and a lot of that is around the relationships, the central mystery, the setting. I think having Aaron Falk's character once again kind of front and centre, but also this cast of really amazing women, kind of the dynamics playing out, as they sort of tackle the bushland and all those things, all those boxes that I would really want to see in that film. Made Up Stories and Robert Connolly, they've captured them so beautifully.
And Jodi, speaking of the bushland, Australia is always showcased so beautifully in these films, but what are the challenges of setting up production out in the wilderness?
There were many challenges with this one. And because, it is really important for us to capture the landscape because it is such a big character in Jane's stories, there's no cheating. So we really had to go into the depths of the rainforest, which meant filming a long way out of Melbourne. These locations we were at, I don't even know how they found them, honestly. Yeah. It's like, how did we end up here? This is crazy. People were saying to us, oh, people have never filmed here before. And as soon as we arrived, I knew exactly why. Because we were driving huge distances. We were hiking 30, 40 minutes, not even on tracks, like through massive, scrub bushlands with mud and leeches. And it was raining in the middle of winter. It was a really, really tough shoot. There were no niceties, no glamour with this shoot. Yeah. But I think when people see it on screen, you really do get the sense that these women are lost in the middle of nowhere, because we really were in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And how did you convince the actors to come on board for that? Or was it a bit of a surprise?
You know what? They knew exactly what they were in for, and they were up for it. And that's the beauty about having a director like Robert Connolly, because, he, as the kind of fearless leader, people will follow him into battle. And also Eric. Eric is the most incredible actor. He's the most incredible producer and human being. And he really sets the tone for everyone. So when Eric is there and he puts his backpack on and he starts hiking, people just follow him.
Speaking of the cast, Jane, before, they were made into films, do you picture certain actors in your mind when you're writing the books, or is that part of your process? Or
No, I never did. I never pictured any actors when I was writing the books. I mean, partly because I never had any sense that, these books would be turned into such fabulous films. And it's not really part of the process for me. But having seen how wonderful these two films are, it definitely does give you a kind of a new way into thinking about the characters. I think particularly for Exiles, which is the third book featuring Aaron Falk. And it was interesting to have Eric Bana, knowing that he will be pictured by so many readers. And I think, honestly, that's no bad thing, is it?
No, absolutely not. Speaking of Exiles, I know you've said that that's the third and final Aaron Falk book, but could you be drawn on revisiting him? Maybe could you change your mind for us?
Look, I suppose you can always change your mind, but no, I mean, I have no intention really at this stage of changing my mind. I think that was the third book for a reason. I wanted it to be, a really considered, thought out ending for a character who's given me so much. I wanted to give him the ending that I felt he deserved. And, I was really happy with the way that story came together. Yeah, I loved writing it. And I think it was a really fitting kind of final part for Aaron Falk.
Are there any plans to turn that one into a film, Jodi?
Do you know what? We were so happy after we made The Dry, and we had such a fantastic time making that movie, and the way that it was embraced by the public, not just in Australia, but worldwide, that we got to do Force of Nature. So that was such a gift. And we are really proud of the movie. And if this one is embraced, we would love to make the third one.
Yeah.
So let's see how the public react to this one.
And it would be a nicer filming environment in wine country than out in the middle of nowhere.
I do remember. So Jane came to visit and she saw how, beaten up we all were. And the Exiles hadn't come out at that point. Yeah. And I remember you saying to me, the next one's set in a really nice place.
Yes. Jodi, The Dry was such an important film for the local industry after the pandemic. Did it feel like there was a lot riding on this one to be as successful?
Look, we just hope that people embrace everything that we make. But because people loved The Dry so much, and even after it's been released for such a long time, people still come up to me and say, I love that movie. I saw it at the cinema twice. I've seen it, on streaming twice. They love it so much that there is a real sense of we don't want to let them down. And I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I don't think we are letting them down. I feel like, if people love The Dry, I really think that they're going to really embrace this movie as well.
I fully agree, actually. I think, when I saw this film, I just thought, this has taken all the things that everybody loved about The Dry and it's packaged it up in like kind of a fresh story and, a fresh scenery, but it's really captured all those things that I think audiences really responded to and readers really loved about it. They've done a phenomenal job. And I think for me, this film is already, for me, as big a success as The Dry was, because you've just done it again.
Made Up Stories, Jodi, has such a strong ethos of championing female stories. Even though the lead character is a man in this one, there's so many strong women in the story. What else does a novel need to have to fit in at Made Up Stories?
Well, for us, we always read a novel and think, okay, do we love this story? Because for us, we have to spend years living in this world, living with these characters. And if a novel takes hold of you and you can't stop thinking about it and you can't stop talking about it, that's the sign that we have to turn it into a screen adaptation. And for us, the moment we read The Dry, it was like, this is it. And it isn't a sort of typical made-up stories kind of book, The Dry, because, it is very male-focused. But, for us to work with a novelist like Jane and the stories that she's telling, the characters that she's creating, that for us is incredibly exciting. And then when we got to read Force of Nature, it was like, oh, wow, this is so us, because these 5 central women in this story are so complex and their relationship is so exciting, and that mystery that kind of pushes us through with these women. It screamed adaptation and just something that we were meant to do.
Just to wrap up quickly, how would you both fare faced with the same situation as the women in this story? Are you campers or are you glampers?
Oh God, I'm not either. To be honest, like I would be terrible. I mean, these guys actually kind of partly lived through it. So yeah, but me, I was happy to sit and drink coffee in the lodge on my set visit. Thanks very much.
Definitely not a camper. Definitely a glamper. But that's the great thing about what we do, because we get to go and spend time in these worlds. So would I ordinarily go and spend 2 months like sloshing through mud and leeches and rain? No. But, we did it with a purpose and we got a great film at the end of it, and we've got really, really good stories out of it.
Amen. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Was Alice up to something?
I think people make their own choices.
Although we're not always clear of the consequences, are we, Alice?
Talented women telling exciting stories. My God, we love to see it.
Amen. And Made Up Stories has done things that no other Australian production company has done before. They had the top 2 films at the Australian box office in 2021 with The Dry and Penguin Bloom, and they're continuing to break the mold and champion inclusivity in their projects. So much to look forward to in their slate, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they release. Let's hope they turn Harper's third Aaron Falk book into a movie ASAP.
And you know what? Because it's set in wine country, maybe we can do like a drunk episode or something. We just do a wine episode.
Let's do a set visit.
Oh, yes. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
For more on Force of Nature, The Dry 2, you can watch our interviews with Eric Bana, Deborra-Lee Furness and Jacqueline McKenzie over on our YouTube channel right now.
And our review of the film is also on all good podcast platforms.
Force of Nature, The Dry 2 is in Australian cinemas from February 8. And friends, as always, thank you so much for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
We have a website, popcornpodcast.com. Make sure you check it out. We've got all our episodes up there for you.
If you'd like to get to know us a little better, there's an About Us section and we run ticket giveaways. So keep an eye on the website for more information.